The best way to learn English is by training your listening skills daily with a good story. The story you are about to hear is a powerful parable about new beginnings, designed to be an immersive and exciting way to enhance your vocabulary and fluency. What happens when the autopilot that guided your life for 15 years is suddenly switched off? This is the story of a man who had everything, until he realized he had nothing but his job title. A lesson about how falling can, in fact, be the way back home. Our story begins 30 floors above Manhattan, in the glass office where Daniel, at 42, was the CFO of a tech startup. His life was an efficiency algorithm, 80-hour work weeks, meetings, reports. Success was his primary metric. His luxury apartment, with spectacular views, was more a showroom than a home, silent and empty. His relationships were ephemeral, scheduled between flights and teleconferences. Daniel was a perfectly calibrated machine for success. But, overnight, his winter arrived. In a crisis meeting, the words were cold and quick: cuts, restructuring. After 15 years of dedication, the machine was switched off. Daniel was fired. That night, in his silent apartment, he looked at the Manhattan horizon. But the feeling wasn't loss, it was erasure. For 15 years, his answer to "Who are you?" was "I am the CFO." With the title gone, the question now echoed in a terrifying void. I was the CFO. Who am I now? Without a title to anchor him, Daniel was adrift. He packed a suitcase haphazardly, not for a business trip, but for an escape. The drive north took him away from the glass and steel of Manhattan, toward the only route he had left: Cold Spring, the town of his childhood. He parked in a world of soft colors and slow rhythm. Every step on the quiet streets was a stark contrast to the urgency that had defined his life. He had no plan, just walked, a ghost, amid his own memories. His feet led him, almost instinctively, to the front of a small restaurant called The Gathering Table. From the door escaped an aroma that paralyzed him on the sidewalk. It wasn't the complex smell of haute cuisine. It was something deeper, older, the smell of home. He entered and ordered potato soup. The first spoonful was an explosion, not of flavor, but of time. Suddenly, he wasn't in a restaurant anymore. He was in his grandmother's kitchen, at 8 years old, watching her stir a steaming pot on the stove. The same smell, the same warmth, the same feeling of unconditional security. There, amid strangers, the executive who never cried, the man who had built impenetrable walls around his heart, felt tears silently streaming down his face. They weren't tears of sadness over losing his job. They were tears of longing for a part of himself he had forgotten existed. Guided by the ghost of a flavor, Daniel walked the streets of his childhood, until he stopped in front of a small house, silent and asleep with time. His grandmother's house, the key was still where she always left it, under a pot on the porch. He entered, the air heavy with the smell of stored memories. But it wasn't inside that his heart led him, but to the backyard. There was the orchard. What was once a paradise of fruits and laughter was now a tangle of dry, bare branches, a cemetery of trees that mirrored the desolation in his soul. He approached an old apple tree, its trunk twisted like a tired body. He thought it was dead, but then, touching the bark, his fingers found something unexpected, a tiny bud, almost invisible, fighting for life. And with that touch, a vivid memory flooded him. He, a small boy, on his grandmother's shoulders, picking succulent apples. her laughter echoing through the orchard. He could almost hear her voice, clear as day. Taking care of trees, my dear, is taking care of your own life. They always know how to start over. His grandmother's memory was the spark, the tiny bud, the proof. Daniel made a decision, not with the logic of a CFO, but with the intuition of a grandson. He would stay. He would care for the orchard. His first day was a disaster of awkward effort. He picked up a rusty pruning shear and began cutting dead branches, not knowing what he was doing. Splinters scratched his hands, which only knew a computer keyboard. Am I crazy? He thought, looking at the immense work before him. Humility led him to local farmers, who taught him that pruning wasn't an act of destruction, but of love. That winter, the time of loss, was essential for spring to arrive with strength, and as he pruned the trees, Daniel began to prune himself. Each dead branch he cut was an unnecessary luxury he sold, like the Manhattan apartment. Each weed he pulled was a superficial relationship he left behind. It was a painful winter of cuts, of getting rid of what was dead so energy could flow to what could still live. And, as the land always keeps its promises to those who care for it, spring arrived, first, timidly, and then, with an explosion of life. The orchard, once a cemetery of branches, was now covered in white and pink flowers. It was a resurrection in slow motion. Daniel walked among the trees, phone in hand, not to check work emails, but to photograph each flower, each new bud. And in one of those photos, he captured something he hadn't seen in years, his own smile, genuine and at peace. Weeks later, he was back at the gathering table, the place where his journey had restarted. He showed the photos of the blooming orchard to Abigail, the owner. She looked at the images, then at Daniel's face, and said with simple wisdom, "It wasn't just the trees that were reborn, was it? You were reborn with them." And she was right. The winter pruning had made space for new growth, not just in the trees, but in his mind. And it was there, in that restaurant, that the two halves of his life, the tech executive and the land apprentice, finally met. He thought of the farmers he had met, and the richness of their produce. He picked up a napkin and began sketching a digital bridge between the roots of Cold Spring and the tables of Manhattan. The name came naturally, Auténtico Sabor Delivery. The sketch on the napkin became a plan, and the plan, fueled by a real purpose, became action. Months later, the Auténtico Sabor Delivery app was launched. But this time, Daniel wasn't the CFO in a glass tower, distant from the product. He was in the fields, side by side with the farmers, patiently teaching them to use technology to share their fruits with the world. He was no longer building algorithms to optimize profits. He was building bridges to connect people. Our story ends 1 year after his fall, back in his grandmother's orchard. Autumn had arrived again, but this was an autumn of harvest, not loss. We see Daniel, not in an expensive suit, but in work clothes, climbing a ladder to pick a red, perfect apple. He holds it in his hand, the fruit of his patience and courage. And as he looks at the tree, now full of life, he finally understands the deepest truth of his journey. Sometimes starting over isn't about planting something new, but nurturing what almost died so it can be reborn. If this parable about second chances resonated with you, leave a comment below telling us, what is the abandoned orchard in your life? An old hobby, a forgotten dream that needs your care to bloom again. Like and share this video so more people find the courage to start over. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that help you learn English. Until next time, tend to your roots, prune what no longer serves you, and prepare for the harvest.